If I could do it all over again, I would give up on saving my boyfriend. When Zichuan was trapped in a burning apartment, I suffered extensive burns all over my body trying to save him. He was so moved that he told me he would love me forever. So we got married. In the 3rd year of our marriage, I died from a severe infection just before I took my last breath. I took one final look at Wen Zichuan and noticed he was visibly relieved. A slender, delicate hand rested on his shoulder. Zichuan, you sacrificed 3 years of your life for her. Marrying such a disfigured woman, you've done more than enough, don't be sad anymore. When Zichuan held that hand and sighed, maybe this was her fate, these past 3 years have been hard on you. When I opened my eyes again, I was back 2 days before the fire. This time, I chose to respect his fate and let him be with his first love. Inside the KTV private room, when Zichuan's friend was belting out "I will love you until death" at the top of his lungs, everyone around was laughing and joking non-stop. The air conditioning in the room was too strong, and I couldn't help but shiver. I looked down at my smooth and scathed hands, not a single finger missing, no ugly scars. Then I quickly took out my phone and turned on the screen. May 18th, 2022, 2 days before the fire. I reached out and touched my own face. Thank goodness. I hadn't yet become someone I couldn't bear to look at. Wen Zichuan, who had been busy attending to his ex-girlfriend Wen Chuyue beside him, finally noticed me. He frowned at me, leaned in close to my ear, and warned, "What's wrong with you? Why are you crying when we're out having fun? It's not because of Xiaoya, is it? I told you in advance." Xiaoya sprained her hand while helping me grab something, so I've been getting her water and fruit. Don't give her a hard time. Xiaoya is a sensitive girl. If you act like this, she'll feel too embarrassed to let me take care of her today. I looked up at Wen Zichuan. Handsome with a youthful charm, no wonder I had fallen for him back then. Now, he showed none of the weariness from our marriage. His eyes were filled only with intense emotion. Unfortunately, that passion wasn't meant for me. Before I could even speak, just a wrong expression on my face made Wen Zichuan worry that Wen Chuyue might get hurt. How laughable. In my past life, I was so blinded by love that I never saw what was in his heart. Seeing that I remained silent, Wen Zichuan grew a bit impatient and reached out to wipe away my tears. "Alright, stop making a scene. Which one do you want to eat? I'll get it for you too." "Okay." His grip was very strong, and I could feel a sharp, burning pain on my skin. This pain instantly stirred up those painful memories, and I instinctively flinched back when Zichuan's hand hung awkwardly in the air. At that moment, Wen Chuyue, looking pitiful, also came closer. "Sister Chuyue, are you upset because of me? What happened between me and brother Zichuan? It's all in the past, if you mind." She bit her lower lip, reluctantly glanced at Wen Zichuan, and then shed a tear. Then I, 02. Before she could finish, Wen Chuyue choked up and couldn't continue. Wen Zichuan, with some concern, put his arm around her shoulder and gently wiped away her tears, completely unlike the rough way he had wiped mine just now. "Nonsense, there's nothing between us. There's no reason we can't interact openly and honestly. There's no need to avoid each other." Then, when Zichuan turned to glare at me and said in a commanding tone, "Bai Chuyue, apologize to Xiaoya." "Yes, my name is Bai Chuyue, similar to Wen Chuyue's name. Not only that, but even our appearances bear some resemblance." Thinking back to the moment before my death in my past life, when I saw Wen Chuyue and Wen Zichuan locked in an embrace, kissing each other, I couldn't help but wonder. During those rare intimate moments in that life, when Wen Zichuan called out "Chuyu," was he actually referring to Wen Chuyue? Was he treating me as her substitute? At this thought, a wave of nausea washed over me. My dry heave made Wen Zichuan's face instantly darken. "Bai Chuyue, what do you mean by that?" Wen Chuyue's expression also soured. She reached out and gently pushed against the arm he had wrapped around her, but the gesture was so light that he only pulled her closer. Her cheeks flushed, yet her eyes hid a barely concealed smugness. "Sister Chuyue, don't be like this, brother Zichuan and I really have nothing going on." Wen Chuyue, I, and Wen Zichuan were all classmates in the same year. However, she started school a year earlier, so she was a year younger than us, but there were also classmates in our class who were 2 or 3 years younger, and I didn't see them going around calling everyone big brother or big sister. I swallowed the nausea in my throat and said coldly, "Don't go around claiming false kinship. As for whether there's something between you two, you know it well enough yourselves. There's no need to put on a show in front of me." When I said that, Wen Chuyue's eyes immediately reddened. She pushed Wen Zichuan again and said, "Stay away from me. I don't want people gossiping behind my back." Wen Zichuan's brows furrowed into a deep shape. and his arm around Wen Chuiyue remained motionless, holding her protectively in his arms as if he were her boyfriend. 3. He looked at me coldly and said, "Bai Chuiyue, do you have to be so unreasonable? Today, Xiaoya has been accommodating you time and again, caring about your feelings, and yet you deliberately target her. Don't you know how important a girl's reputation is? What do you mean by saying that? Or do you think that just because I'm dating you, I can't have any friends of the opposite sex? Don't tarnish our relationship with your dirty thoughts." At that moment, Wen Zichuan's friends also stopped singing and looked at me with unfriendly eyes. "Not to be rude, Bai Chuiyue, but you're being a bit dramatic. It's only because Zichuan has such a good temper that he can put up with you." "Exactly, Xiaoya has been our friend for 7 years. We've known her since our first year of high school. Just because you're dating Zichuan doesn't mean Xiaoya can't hang out with us, does it? You knew about their past before you started dating Zichuan, so it's pointless to keep getting upset about it now." When Zichuan's friends had already held a grudge against me in their past lives, and I only found out by accidentally overhearing them complaining about me to him. Back then, I was severely burned all over my body and disfigured, so I rarely went out and didn't want to see anyone. But when Zichuan ignored my wishes and invited his friends over to drink at our home through the slightly open door, I heard the sounds of Wen Zichuan and his friends smoking and drinking. Someone mentioned Wen Chuiyue, and then they started badmouthing me to lift her up. "Zichuan, I really feel sorry for you, you're so outstanding. Yet you ended up marrying a nightmare. You and Xiaoya are such a perfect match. When, even your surnames go so well together. Honestly, I think Xiaoya divorced you for your sake. She often asks us privately how you're doing now. I can tell she still loves you. You're not really planning to spend your whole life with Bai Chuiyue, are you? That face, waking up to it in the morning would be a nightmare, wouldn't it?" 3 years had passed since I was burned, and after countless painful reconstructive surgeries, my face was still a horrifying sight. I touched my rough, uneven face with my left hand, missing 3 fingers, and waited quietly for Wen Zichuan's answer. 04. Wen Zichuan was silent for a long time. The living room was eerily quiet, and I could even hear the sound of him flicking ash from his cigarette. Finally, he sighed. "She saved my life, after all." Wen Zichuan's friend immediately retorted, "But that doesn't mean you have to repay her for the rest of your life, does it? Just give her money for skin grafts and cosmetic surgery. There's no need to sacrifice your entire life. Every time I see how Xiaoya looks at you, I feel it's such a pity you let her go. You'll never meet a woman who loves you as much as she does." When you first started dating Bai Chuiyue, wasn't it because she looked like Xiaoya? Hearing this, my breath caught in my throat, and my heart ached sharply. Was I just a substitute for Wen Chuiyue? Now her face is burned like this, with not a trace of Xiaoya left. If anything, it's just the name that's somewhat similar. I really didn't expect that after Xiaoya found a boyfriend, Zichuan would immediately bring back a Xiaoya too. 0. It gave me quite a shock. Don't insult Xiaoya, she's not even worthy of the title too. 0. She can't even compare to Xiaoya's toenails. When Zichuan's friends judged me from head to toe right in front of him, but he acted as if he hadn't heard a thing, just silently smoking. I felt my heart shatter into pieces. Just when I thought this was the limit of my pain, I heard a truth that made me even more devastated. "Alright, don't go too far. Bai Chuiyue did save Zichuan after all. If Xiaoya hadn't gotten drunk and gone to Zichuan's apartment, causing the fire, Bai Chuiyue wouldn't have been burned like that trying to save him. Are you blaming Xiaoya? That's not what I mean, but you have to admit, if Xiaoya hadn't gotten drunk and threatened Zichuan with a bottle and a lighter to get back together with her right away, the apartment wouldn't have caught fire." "Enough." When Zichuan's impatient voice rang out, "What's the point of talking about this? Come on, let's drink. We're not going home until we're drunk tonight." 5. I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cave. So, the 3 years of hellish life I endured, the real, piercing pain, was all just because of this reconciliation game between these 2 young lovers. From the unrestrained chatter of this group of drunks, I pieced together the truth of the matter. After Wen Chuiyue and Wen Zichuan had been dating for a year, she dumped him for a senior who had been pursuing her. Wen Zichuan, feeling humiliated after being dumped, turned his attention to me. At that time, I was moved by Wen Zichuan's sincere pursuit of me, so I agreed to be with him. However, Wen Zichuan, who was now in a relationship with me, rekindled Wen Chuiyue's desire to conquer him, so she immediately broke up with her senior and started flirting with Wen Zichuan again, fearing that if he agreed to be with Wen Chuiyue, she would abandon him again. Wen Zichuan used me to keep her hooked, making her emotionally and physically invested in him, angry that when Zichuan refused to break up with me. When Chuiwei got drunk on May 20th and went to confront him, she threatened Wen Zichuan with a bottle of alcohol and a lighter, saying that if he didn't get back together with her, she would set the bottle on fire in front of him. Unexpectedly, as the panicked Wen Zichuan knocked it out of her hand, the lighter suddenly exploded, igniting the alcohol that had spilled all over the floor. The two, locked in an embrace, didn't notice at first. It was only when the fire got out of control that they frantically called 119 to put it out. Just then, I arrived with a carefully prepared 520 gift to find Wen Zichuan, only to discover his apartment on fire. I first called the firefighters, then grabbed a fire extinguisher, wrapped myself in a wet blanket, and rushed in to save him. When I found Wen Zichuan, he and Wen Chuiwei had already fled to the staircase on the second floor. I didn't even have time to ask why Wen Chuiwei was there. I just busied myself with using the fire extinguisher to clear a path for them. But Wen Zichuan took my fire extinguisher, saying he would lead the way, with Wen Chuiwei following behind him, and since I had the blanket, I should cover the rear. However, when we reached the first floor lobby, the ceiling suddenly broke and fell, and the fire from the second floor came crashing down with it. Wen Zichuan, walking at the front, was most likely to be hit. When Chuiwei screamed and dodged to the side, leaving only Wen Zichuan, who hadn't noticed any of this, still moving forward. So, disregarding my own safety, I rushed forward and pushed him out of the way, only to be struck myself. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital. Wen Zichuan sat by my bedside with red-rimmed eyes, speaking with deep affection, saying he loved me and would take care of me for the rest of my life. After being discharged from the hospital, we got married, just registered the certificate, no wedding, because I didn't want to see anyone. Wen Zichuan nodded without hesitation and agreed. In the 3 years after marriage, I never set foot outside the house except to go to the hospital for treatment. Wen Zichuan's patience with me gradually faded, and he began to stay out all night, using business dinners and work trips as excuses. 6. That fire not only left me with severe burns all over my body but also cost me my right hand. The remaining hand had only 2 fingers left. Without someone's help, I could hardly do things that seemed simple to others, like bathing or cooking for myself. Wen Zichuan initially hired a caregiver for me, but when Wen Chuiwei visited our home and was frightened by my appearance, he made an excuse to fire her. At the time, he said the caregiver had been rude to Wen Chuiwei and worried that she might act one way in front of us and another behind our backs, possibly neglecting my care, so he let her go. He said he would find a more suitable caregiver for me, but until the day I died, I never saw him arrange for anyone to take care of me. Looking back now, it was probably because my appearance scared Wen Chuiwei, so he deliberately fired the nanny to get back at me. If someone had taken care of me, maybe I wouldn't have died from a severe infection. I hadn't seen Wen Zichuan for half a year before my death. It wasn't until I mustered the last of my strength to call 120 that he came to the hospital, notified by them, to see me one last time. Seeing me lying on the hospital bed, barely alive, Wen Zichuan let out an obvious sigh of relief. You saved me, I married you, we're even now. Chuiwei, you've had a hard life, I hope you'll have a better one in your next life. When Chuiwei came to the hospital with him, she put her arm around Wen Zichuan's shoulder and looked at him with concern. Zichuan, you sacrificed 3 years of your life marrying such a wretched woman. You've done more than enough. Don't be sad anymore. Because of her, we had to keep our relationship a secret for 3 years. People who don't know the truth probably think I'm the other woman. When Chuiwei was something else, she got married the same year as us and only divorced last year, yet she still managed a secret relationship with Wen Zichuan for 3 years. Both of them are habitual scumbags. Wen Zichuan reached out and pulled Wen Chuiwei into his arms, his eyes full of distress. You've suffered, I'll make it up to you from now on. Before I even breathed my last, the two of them were already hugging and kissing right by my bedside. I was so furious I wished I could grab a knife and chop them up. My life has never been good, and the worst part of it was meeting those 2 bastards. In the end, I felt like I was literally pissed off to death by the 2 of them. Thinking of this, the hatred in my eyes grew even stronger. I stood up directly, picked up the wine glass beside me, and splashed it in Wen Zichuan's face. Wen Zichuan, are you dead? Your friend matters, so your girlfriend can just be blamed and insulted at will, right? Whoever becomes your girlfriend must have the worst luck in the world. We're breaking up, give me back the 500,000 you borrowed from me right now. 7. When Zichuan said last month that he wanted to start a business and borrowed the 500,000 yuan I had saved from writing novels since high school. He once promised that if his business succeeded, he would give me some shares, but in my past life, when he actually succeeded in his business, he never mentioned it again. Even my later medical expenses and living costs came from the subsequent income of my novels, but that money wouldn't be enough to hire a caregiver for me. When I mentioned money, when Zichuan, who had been dismissive about the breakup, immediately darkened his expression. Bai Chuyue, my patience has its limits. When Chuyue scolded, Bai Chuyue, don't you know that using money to control a man is the stupidest thing? Brother Zichuan is your boyfriend, and you didn't leave him any face in front of so many people. You're going too far. When Zichuan's friends also joined in blaming me. Bai Chuyue, do you have a heart? Zichuan has been so good to you, and you humiliate him in public. Exactly. I'm starting to doubt if you really love Zichuan. I cut them off directly. Good to me. Give me one example. An eerie silence fell over the private room. I let out a cold laugh. Can't come up with anything else. Don't you feel guilty saying he loves me? Since you're all so keen on defending Wen Zichuan, I'm sure you'd be happy to pay me back the 500,000 yuan on his behalf, right? Hearing me bring up the money, everyone dared not speak. Only when Chuyue's eyes were filled with jealousy toward me. Who keeps talking about money in a relationship? Bai Chuyue, you lent brother Zichuan that money willingly back then. Now that it's all invested in the company, you're asking for it back. Aren't you just making things difficult on purpose? When Zichuan let out a sigh, I know you've been wrong today. How about I apologize to you on everyone's behalf? They were just speaking out of turn in the heat of the moment. When Zichuan stood up, took my hand, and guided me back to the sofa. Don't you like pistachios? Sit down, and I'll shell some for you. Okay. I didn't resist and obediently sat down, eating the pistachios he fed me while shooting a smug glance at Wen Chuyue. It suddenly occurred to me, if I broke up with Wen Zichuan now, would the fire the day after tomorrow still happen? I need that fire to happen as planned, and I want Wen Zichuan to experience the same suffering I endured in my past life. So now, not only can I not break up with Wen Zichuan, but I also need to provoke Wen Chuyue into going to the apartment to find him again. Wen Chuyue's face instantly darkened. She stood up, wiped away her tears, and ran off. Wen Zichuan immediately stood up to chase after her. I coughed and looked at him coldly. Where are you going? Wen Zichuan looked anxiously at the door but dared not take another step forward. Xiaoya is sensitive. I'm afraid something might happen to her. I nodded indifferently. Fine, go ahead and chase her. But before you step out that door, pay me back first. Once we're done and clear, you can chase whoever you want. 8. Money, 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 money. When Zichuan exploded, is money all you care about? How did I never notice you were such a materialistic woman before? When Zichuan looked at me disappointedly, you've changed. You weren't this materialistic before. Now every word out of your mouth is about money. I wasn't buying into Wen Zichuan's gaslighting at all. Haven't you changed? The man who once swore he'd build his own career now wants to live off a woman. When you were chasing me, you said you'd only love me and keep your distance from other women. And what happened? I've never seen a boyfriend ditch his girlfriend to take care of his so-called female buddy. His face had turned terrifyingly dark when I called him a freeloader, but when I brought up how he took care of Wen Chuyue, his anger was instantly replaced by smugness. He thought I was just being unreasonable out of jealousy. When Zichuan looked at me helplessly, Chuyue, how many times do I have to explain for you to understand? Xiaoya and I are like brother and sister. Can you stop being jealous for no reason? I couldn't break up with Wen Zichuan just yet, so I took the out he offered and muttered, fine, I'll trust you one more time. The smugness in Wen Zichuan's eyes grew even stronger. Let me take you back to school first. We were seniors now. With only a month left until graduation, I had originally planned to use that 500,000 to decide where to buy a house based on my job location after graduation. So I was still living in the dormitory. As we left the private room, through the slightly open door, I heard the once silent room start bashing me again. TSK, she was all high and mighty just now, but one word from Zichuan and she's back in line, isn't she? With a personality like hers, she's bound to be dumped sooner or later. Xiaoya is so gentle and sweet, she's the one everyone loves. She has no backbone at all. I bet every bone in her body is soft. They knew I could hear them. And they said it on purpose for me to hear. I could hear it, and of course Wen Zichuan beside me could too, but he acted as if he hadn't heard a thing and just kept walking ahead. After sending me back to the dormitory, Wen Zichuan turned and left without a word, probably in a hurry to find Wen Chuiyue. In the middle of the night, my phone received a photo from Wen Chuiyue, a picture of Wen Zichuan lying on a hotel bed, bare-chested. Soon after, Wen Chuiyue recalled it. She wouldn't leave a stain on the innocent, harmless little white flower image she had carefully cultivated, but I didn't care about any of that at all. After all, she didn't have many days left to strut around. 9. But to provoke her, on the 19th, I deliberately clung to Wen Zichuan, bossing him around to buy things for me and feed me, then shot smug glances at Wen Chuiyue, who had been trailing behind us the whole time. Even though Wen Zichuan could tell I was doing it on purpose, he enjoyed watching two women fight over him, especially since my behavior made Wen Chuiyue even more dependent on him. In that case, he went along with everything I wanted. I wrapped my arms around Wen Zichuan's and cooed. Zichuan, tomorrow is 520, how about we spend it at your place? You prepare a candlelit dinner for just the two of us, and I'll give you a big surprise. After saying that, I winked at Wen Zichuan. Wen Chuiyue, sitting nearby, looked like her face was about to twist out of shape, and she practically squeezed out a few words through gritted teeth. Shameless, I pretended to be confused and looked up at her. What did you say? Wen Chuiyue curled her lips. I said you two are really close. I smiled and accepted Wen Chuiyue's compliment. Xiaoya, you too. Just because you met a jerk doesn't mean you should give up on love. You should find a boyfriend too. As soon as I said that, Wen Zichuan was the first to object. Xiaoya is still young, there's no rush, don't give her bad advice. Wen Chuiyue smiled sweetly when she heard Wen Zichuan say that. I watched the two of them exchange glances coldly, only hoping they could still smile after tomorrow night. On May 20th, I still stuck to Wen Zichuan like glue during the day. I could tell that as the evening approached, Wen Zichuan grew more anxious, probably thinking of an excuse to get rid of me, so I set an alarm and pretended I had something to do. Leaving on my own, I hid not far from Wen Zichuan's apartment, and only felt relieved after seeing Wen Chuiyue walk in with alcohol. This accident would not change because of my rebirth. Since Wen Zichuan was starting his business, the apartment he rented was a 3-story old building, over 30 years old in the remote suburbs, but it was very close to the factory he needed to lease because the rent was cheap. Wen Zichuan simply waved his hand and rented all 6 units in the entire building as employee dormitories. When the fire broke out, his employees were still working overtime at the factory and hadn't returned yet, so in the previous life, I was the only victim of that fire. Until Wen Zichuan's room burst into flames, I didn't see anyone else enter the apartment, and I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I wanted Wen Zichuan to return to the path of fate he was supposed to follow, but I didn't want to cause others to suffer this time. Without my help, Wen Zichuan was sent to the hospital with severe burns all over his body. Like me in my previous life, he lost his right hand and 3 fingers on his left hand. 10. Wen Zichuan's friend came running to me, pointing at my nose and yelling angrily, "Bai Chuiyue, your conscience has been eaten by dogs. Zichuan is injured and hospitalized like this, and you don't even bother to visit him. Bai Chuiyue, I never thought you could be this kind of person. When Zichuan was fine, you clung to him, but now that he's injured, you stay far away." I let out a sneer. So now that Wen Zichuan is hurt, you suddenly remember me. Weren't you always saying I'm not worthy of him? Why don't you go find Wen Chuiyue instead? Weren't you the one saying she and Wen Zichuan are a match made in heaven? What's the matter? Now that Wen Zichuan is disfigured and disabled, has the kind and innocent little Yeye decided to abandon him? When I was dating Wen Zichuan, you all had time to follow our pure little Yeye around constantly. Don't tell me you've run out of time now that Wen Zichuan is injured. The group was silenced by my words, leaving only a "you're ruthless enough." Before they turned and left, I snorted coldly, ignoring the onlooking classmates who were whispering about me, and left the place as well. These sycophantic scumbags still want to morally blackmail me, a bunch of bootlicking trash. Don't be fooled by their current righteous words for Wen Zichuan. The moment they see him truly down and out, they'll be the first to kick him. Still, I went to the hospital, not to see Wen Zichuan, but to collect a debt. Wen Zichuan was wrapped in bandages from head to toe, staring blankly at the ceiling. When he saw me arrive, a glimmer of life returned to his eyes. "Chuiyue, you finally came. I've been waiting for you so long." I had no patience to listen to his weak, fragmented ramblings. The familiar, pungent smell of medicine triggered phantom pains in my body, and I grew irritable. I cut him off directly. "Waiting for me? What for? Shouldn't you be expecting Wen Chuiyue to take care of you? After all, you spent your 520 night with her." When Zichuan's pupils dilated in shock, "You saw that?" Xiaoya came to me to get back together, but I didn't agree, holding her and making out on the windowsill. And you call that not agreeing? You dare to say it, but I don't even dare to hear it. I grew more and more irritated. Alright, enough with the nonsense, give me back my 500,000, and we'll be even, do whatever you want. When Zichuan looked hurt, his expression pained. They told me before that you were shallow and materialistic, only willing to share in wealth, not hardship. I didn't believe it, but I never thought that as soon as I got injured, you'd be so eager to break up. Stop, I said coldly, looking at him. Don't try that moral blackmail on me. I'm not buying it, pay me back. When Zichuan let out a painful groan, then his expression shifted. He looked at himself in surprise, then turned to me in shock. Bai Chuyue, where are your scars? How are your hands healed? Why am I the one lying in the hospital bed? When Zichuan had also been reborn 11, I laughed, feeling the phantom pain in my body begin to ease. Why shouldn't it be you? You betrayed me to secretly meet Wen Chuyue in the apartment. This is your fate. When Zichuan couldn't believe it. But, didn't you push me away? Then his eyes widened. You've been reborn too. I curled my lips. Did you get your brain burned? What nonsense are you talking about? What rebirth or not? Don't try to play dumb and get out of paying me back. When Zichuan still didn't know that the most painful thing wasn't the pain of just waking up in the hospital, nor the disappointment of failing to recover after repeated treatments, nor the strange looks from others, nor the helplessness of being unable to do even the simplest things in life. I hoped he would savor every bit of it. When Zichuan still couldn't believe I would be so heartless. I'm still in the hospital, and you're asking me for money. In your past life, after you were burned, I married you. I frowned. Did the fire drive you insane? What past life? If you don't pay me back, I'll call all your relatives and friends and have them chip in to settle the debt. I'll pay it back for my son. When Zichuan's parents, who had just arrived, shot me a disgusted glare upon hearing my words. How much is it? I'll pay. I told you long ago. This woman is rotten to the core. You just wouldn't listen and insisted on dating her. I simply don't care about Wen Zichuan's parents' opinion of me. They hated me in my past life, were firmly opposed to Wen Zichuan marrying me, and whenever something went slightly wrong after the wedding, they would come and take it out on me. All I want now is to get my money back. When Zichuan's mother transferred 500,000 yuan to me, and I returned the IOU that I had asked Wen Zichuan to write a couple of days ago. After leaving the hospital, I stopped paying attention to Wen Zichuan's affairs, but some classmates would deliberately bring him up in front of me, so I learned that after being discharged from the hospital, Wen Zichuan married Wen Chuyue. Speaking of this, someone in the crowd looked at me with contempt, loudly praising Wen Chuyue's kindness and the sacred love between them. I couldn't care less about any of this. Once I get my diploma, I'll leave this city and never have anything to do with them again. Let them think whatever they want. 6 months later, I suddenly saw news about Wen Zichuan and Wen Chuyue again. Wen Chuyue's face was pixelated, but I still recognized her at a glance. Her body splattered with large patches of blood. She screamed, "He forced me. He forced me to kill him." He cried out in pain every day, hit me, cursed me, saying I caused all his suffering. He even tried to set me on fire. He wanted to turn me into a monster like him. I had no choice. I had to kill him first. When Zichuan's mother was being held back, desperately trying to lunge at Wen Chuyue, shouting, "Give me back my son, you venomous woman, give me back my son." After Wen Chuyue was imprisoned, netizens dug up more details, revealing there was more to the story. It was said that Wen Chuyue was having an affair with one of Wen Zichuan's friends, and when they were discovered, the group plotted to silence him, only to be caught off guard by the unexpected arrival of Wen Zichuan's parents. I stretched lazily, looking out at the sunny weather, and wondered if I should find some friends to celebrate with a hot pot meal. The end. That's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next one is even more exciting. My husband is as serene as a chrysanthemum. My parents pulled strings to find him a job, but he ranted about bureaucracy harming society. When he got into trouble and couldn't graduate, I gave gifts to his advisor, and he turned around and reported me, saying I was encouraging unethical behavior. I worked hard to manage the household, but he said, "Don't be so utilitarian." In 60 years of marriage, he only focused on not competing or striving. But after I passed away, before even the 7th-day memorial was over, he couldn't wait to marry his first love, writing. 60 years of separation, no letter can capture the song of longing. I was so furious I came back to life. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I got my marriage certificate at 23. Hold the wedding. I'm going to take the postgraduate entrance exam. to win me back, he said, "There's nothing between me and Einer, I'm tired of saying it." I rolled my eyes and sneered, "The hell you say, bro, you're so full of it." At 83, I died of illness. Before the 7th day of my death, my husband of 60 years made a big show of marrying his first love, Xiaoyin. It made me laugh in disbelief. Xiaoyin was far inferior to me when she was young, and in her old age, she's simply hideous. Old Lin, you must be really desperate to stoop this low. I can't even bring myself to say it. Thinking back carefully, there were so many suspicious points between Lin Qing and Xiaoyin. They kept in touch on and off for 60 years, and finally managed to outlive me. He married her and brought her into the house I bought. They invited so many guests that the living room couldn't hold them all. To make room for their wedding photo and red candles, they simply moved my portrait out. There was no trace of a man who had just lost his wife on Lin Cheng's face. He was beaming with joy. Well, it makes sense. He was marrying the woman he loved most in his life. "I still remember when we got married," he said. "There's no need to hold a wedding banquet. My personal marriage isn't a big deal. No need to waste everyone's time and energy." Looking back now, I guess he looked down on me, thinking it was too shameful to marry a woman reeking of money like me, so it had to be done in secret in order to protect his reputation. To thank the guests, Lin Qing played the piano while Xiaoyin danced to the music. He played slowly, and she moved unsteadily, truly like a couple who had endured countless hardships and finally reconciled. In the 60 years I was with him, he never once played the piano for me. I had asked him to, but he said, "The piano should be played for those who truly understand it." It turned out that his soulmate had been Xiaoyin all along. "Lin Qing, your lawful wife is watching from heaven." I wanted to scream, to roar, but I couldn't make a sound. It was time for the speeches. With tears in his eyes, he said, "Zhao Min was too utilitarian. I've been exhausted my whole life and never followed my true heart. Einer has a gentle and tranquil nature. She was truly my perfect match. If not for Zhao Min's coercion, we would have been together long ago. Fortunately, it's still not too late. Xiaoyin, I love you, in this life and forever. I am only your husband." The elderly couple held each other's hands tightly, gazing at each other's wrinkled faces. On Lin Cheng's face was a tenderness I had never seen before. I suddenly felt how ridiculous I was. After marriage, I called him husband, but he frowned and told me to just call him by his name, not to be too mushy. In his lifetime, I never heard him say "I love you." After his death, I heard him say it to another woman. Finally, amid everyone's blessings, he wrote in neat regular script, 60 years of drifting apart, no letter can capture the longing. With one sentence, he negated all the hard work I had put in over the years. Every minute and every second of the past 60 years, he never stopped thinking about his first love. The soul has no tears to begin with. But as I laughed and laughed, I suddenly felt my cheeks grow wet. Splendid, I truly am a blind fool, I wept heart-wrenchingly. For the 60 years that had been betrayed could never be reclaimed. Suddenly, my heart clenched, and I fainted from the pain. When I woke up again, I was back on the day I got our marriage certificate with him. I was only 23 that year. My family was well off. My father worked in the transportation system, and my mother, from a scholarly family, was a renowned painter. Lin Qing came from a humble background and was admitted to a university from a small county town. I had always admired his serene, indifferent attitude toward fame and fortune, and it took me a whole year of pursuit to win him over. I brought him to meet my parents, but they disapproved of our marriage. Lin Qing stood up and left, telling me not to contact him anymore, saying he didn't want to be seen as someone trying to climb the social ladder. I knelt before my parents, crying and pleading, repeatedly assuring them that he was truly an outstanding young man with ambition, and that after marriage, he would definitely not rely on the family. As soon as my parents relented, I went to find Lin Qing with the good news. He said indifferently, "Is that so? Actually, you didn't have to go through all that. It's not like I absolutely have to marry you." At the time, I thought he must be angry, so I did everything I could to cheer him up. He reluctantly said, Fine." He got married right after graduation and tried to find a job, but he always got sent back before even finishing the probation period. He thought highly of himself, believing that since he graduated from a prestigious university, he shouldn't have to do menial work. He also liked to meddle and couldn't stand seeing his boss scold subordinates, often butting in. His resume wasn't considered outstanding in City A. His parents said they absolutely wouldn't help us, but behind the scenes, they quietly pulled strings for him, hoping he could get a good job and that I could live a better life. He offended all of his parents' friends, and In the end, whether in private or state-owned companies, no decent place wanted him. In City A, he simply couldn't find a job. He was still complaining at home. Those officials are so full of themselves. Every single one of them is nothing but a parasite on society. I would never stoop to their level. I'd rather live a simple life than compromise my principles. I felt for him and said, "Why don't you try furthering your studies? I'll take care of supporting the family." So he lived off me and went back to school. During his PhD, he clashed with his advisor over a trivial matter and almost failed to graduate. I dropped everything I was doing to apologize to his advisor and even gave him quite a few gifts. He went behind my back and secretly reported the advisor for accepting gifts, leaving me in an awkward position until my father stepped in to resolve it. He frowned at me, seemingly convinced he was right and disappointed in me, saying, "You're just encouraging this kind of corrupt behavior." This time, I finally couldn't hold it in anymore. "What have you ever contributed to this family since we got married?" He jumped to his feet. "All you ever see is money, money, money. How did I end up marrying a woman like you? When our son was born, you weren't home to take care of him. You're out all day doing who knows what." That's just who I am. Lynching. If you're so vain and greedy for power and status, go ahead and do it yourself. Later, I felt a bit regretful. I had gone too far and hurt his pride, so I even lowered myself to apologize to make it up to him. When he was up for his professional title evaluation, I swallowed my pride and begged my elder brother for help. It's fair to say that all the smooth sailing in his life was thanks to me. Without me, he would never have become the renowned professor he is today. Of course, he could afford to act aloof and detached, because the entire household's expenses were on my shoulders, and all the unsavory backdoor deals were. It was me who walked the path for him. Of course, he never had to humble himself and compromise, because I bore all the grievances. But now that I'm dead, he has achieved fame and success, risen in rank, gotten rich, and lost his wife. Perfect timing to rekindle his old flame. "Just sign here." I snapped back to reality, and the staff member in front of me handed me a pen, signaling me to sign the marriage registration. Turning my head slightly, Lynching, sitting beside me, wore a detached expression, not a trace of wedding joy on his face. He had been like this for 60 years after our marriage, never once showing me a smile. I gently stroked my face, no longer bearing the wrinkles from years of hard work for him. My skin was smooth and delicate. The years I had been let down. Youth is back. Taking a deep breath, I tossed the pen back onto the table. "Let's call off the wedding for now. I'm going back to take the postgraduate entrance exam." A flicker of emotion finally crossed Lin Cheng's usually stoic, deadpan face. He furrowed his brow. "What's the fuss about?" Those three simple words made me the unreasonable one. In the past, whenever his face fell, I would relent and then try to cheer him up. It happened so many times that even I started to believe I was the one in the wrong, that I had let down the ever-calm Professor Lin, having been given a rare second chance at life. "I'm not putting up with this anymore." Too lazy to say more, I grabbed my bag and left. Unexpectedly, Lin Chun caught up in a flustered stride. "Wait, Zhao Min, let's get this straight." He grabbed my wrist, and I shuddered all over. To be honest, that touch made me utterly disgusted. I just wanted to throw up. I think I made myself quite clear just now. I shook off his hand and wiped it on my pants. He noticed my gesture, his pupils narrowing slightly. "You're not going to marry me." I held back the urge to curse. There were too many people around. Making a scene would end up in the news. I said, "I'm going to take the postgraduate entrance exam. You understand, right?" I stared straight at him. His face stiffened. "Oh, right, of course." I smiled with satisfaction and turned to walk out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, basking in the warm sunlight. I finally believed that I was truly alive again. Wasn't 60 years of marriage nothing but a nauseating cage for me? I didn't break up with him because I still had feelings for him. He had worn me down for 60 years, and I would personally push him into the abyss. Saying I wanted to take the postgraduate entrance exam wasn't just an excuse. Having experienced my past life, I deeply realized how important it is for women to read more. With my excellent grades and awards from various competitions, getting a postgraduate recommendation was no problem at all. But in order to marry him, I gave up the opportunity for postgraduate recommendation, found a job early, and dutifully supported the family. Yet all I got in return was his so-called separation of the couple. What a sophisticated insult. You'd need to be well-read to even understand it. Now there are still over half a year left before the postgraduate entrance exam, so it's not too late. My mother called to ask about the situation. "Weren't you the one who insisted on marrying him? What happened?" It had been a long time since I last heard her voice. and my heart ached with bitterness. I was a foolish, love-struck fool who had caused my parents endless worry. Mom, I want to improve my education while I'm still young. It'll come in handy later, thinking back to my past life. When I faced a major promotion opportunity with outstanding performance but was held back by my bachelor's degree, I was filled with resentment, my teeth itched with irritation. My parents felt deeply relieved and immediately transferred money to me, urging me to sign up for the postgraduate entrance exam prep class without delay. Even if I never worked a day in my life, my family's assets would be enough to last me a lifetime. But Lin Cheng was in a tough spot. Without my financial support, he could barely afford to eat. There was no contact between us, and with his prideful nature, there was no way he would call me first. In my past life, I was frantic about it. In this life, I've learned to let it go. The more you pander to him, the more he acts like a jerk, actually believing he's something special. He didn't ask, and I didn't care. It was a perfect match. Just a week had passed, and he couldn't hold back anymore. He called me, his voice cold and hard. That's enough. A little coyness is cute, but know when to stop. Too busy. I have to focus on the graduate entrance exam, I replied casually. He was silent for a moment. We can study together. I can even help you. We had both graduated, and the dormitory was no longer available. He didn't even have money for food, let alone rent. I almost laughed, but I remember my GPA is higher than yours, so I don't think I need your help. He seemed to hold back again and again. I don't have money for food. How ironic. He didn't like me bringing up money, because I was the one who always solved the financial problems. Now it was his turn to worry about money. It's fine, money can't buy you a meal anyway. I threw his own words back at him. You can always eat for free. Stung by my retort, he finally lost his temper. So what if your family has money? Why do you always have to rub salt in my wounds? I sighed. You've got hands and feet. Just go get a job. That was a pointless thing to say. If he could handle the grind of working, he wouldn't have been broke in the first place. Don't think I can't get by without you, Zhao Min. He hung up in a huff. As it turned out, he really couldn't. He went to work at a fast food joint run by a friend of mine. Out of respect for me, the friend reluctantly hired him. One day, a friend complained to me that Lin Cheng, who worked as a waiter delivering food, had messed up a customer's drink order. The customer grumbled a few words, and they weren't exactly pleasant, so he dumped the entire drink on the customer's head. I asked my friend to send me the video, and I posted it online myself. Within just a day of going live, the video had been shared over 10 million times, earning him the new nickname Fast Food Lunatic. My friend fired Lin Cheng, but I thought that wasn't enough. Deduct another month's salary as compensation for the restaurant. My friend chuckled. What? Don't you feel sorry for your dear boyfriend? This means he's working for free for a whole month. If I let him actually get paid, I wouldn't be Zhao Min. Lin Cheng was kicked out without a single cent, having previously been provided with food and lodging. Now he had absolutely nowhere to go. He contacted me again. Min, I tried working, but it didn't work out. Every time he messed up at work in the past, he would call me in that greasy tone. I was completely infatuated back then. The moment he spoke, I would soften and clean up his messes. It's okay, you're famous now, you can do livestream sales. How could this not be considered making a name for oneself? Seeing that I wasn't taking the bait and was even mocking him, he gritted his teeth and said, how could I have ended up with a woman like you? Whoever he wants, let him have them. I'm done indulging his attitude. Sure enough, he went back to Xia Yin, who was a perfect match for him. Xia Yin attended a second-tier university across the street from our school, separated by just one road, yet the gap in academic prestige was worlds apart. Lin Cheng was a prodigy from a remote mountain village, and Xia Yin, having made it out, could also be considered an outstanding achiever. She was a year younger than Lin Cheng, and he had put no small amount of effort into helping her with her college entrance exams. I was too naive, truly believing in their so-called pure friendship. What a small world. When I went back to school to handle some business, Xia Yin was delivering food to Lin Cheng, and the three of us ran into each other. Out of sight, out of mind. I lifted my foot to walk past them. Xia Yin stopped me. Min Jia, isn't that enough? Brother Lin has been through a lot lately. I raised an eyebrow. Have you lost your mind playing the mistress? How dare you come up and morally lecture the real partner? Upon hearing this, tears welled up in her eyes. How could you say that? Lin Cheng shielded her, saying, if you have a problem, take it out on me. You're just too paranoid. There's nothing between her and me. I've said it enough times. I didn't want to curse either, but he walked right into it. What the hell are you saying? Strong bro, quit playing the saint. If I hadn't seen with my own eyes their sweet twilight romance after death, I would have been fooled by lynching again this time. Seeing them just annoys me. They've turned my perfectly good life into a joke. Luckily, I was given a second chance instead of being sent straight to the underworld. Otherwise, I'd be laughed to death by my best friends and scolded to death by my parents. Literally, I walked away without noticing the venomous look in Shine's eyes. She was talented in singing and dancing, with a pure appearance, and was considered a campus belle in university. Having suffered such a great grievance at my hands, there was no way she wouldn't seek revenge. She wrote a lengthy post on her social media, without mentioning my name, yet every sentence alluded to me. She detailed how I allegedly bullied and oppressed an innocent girl from a small town. Her lackeys helped repost it, including Lin Cheng. He was so passionate about upholding justice, how could he not help his favorite woman? Lin Cheng's popularity brought attention, and the matter was soon posted online. Netizens all say, "We wronged the fast food guy." Turns out he was forced into becoming a waiter by his vain girlfriend. That crazy woman is too hateful, biting everyone she meets and framing an innocent, pure girl. This matter even escalated to discrimination by top ranking students against those from ordinary schools. The news reached the school and my parents, and I was called in for a talk. My mother came along to accompany me. How did things get so bad? After the talk, my mother held my hand, her face full of worry. A short post without solid evidence won't get me punished by the school, but it will damage my reputation and hinder my chances for graduate school and civil service exams. Don't worry. The innocent shouldn't fall into the trap of self-justification. You and Dad don't get involved. I'll speak up if needed. Don't worry. Those who are innocent should not get caught up in the self-justification cycle. You and your father, just leave it alone. I'll let you know if there's anything I need to say. Shine is a minor internet celebrity who occasionally streams and makes money from tips. She deliberately led things on, and my personal information was leaked. My phone was blown up, and my social media was flooded with abusive private messages. After returning, I removed my SIM card and shut down all social platforms. I registered a new phone number and created a bunch of alternate accounts. I carefully checked Shine's account. She often showed off gifts from fans, so I took screenshots and saved them. My best friend told me she had Shine's WeChat. I noticed that some items she posted in her moments looked a lot like things that had mysteriously gone missing from me. There were bracelets, earrings, and even the birthday gift Lin Cheng gave me last year. He gave me a necklace last year, though it wasn't expensive. He had saved up and scrimped to buy it. I was deeply moved and wore it every day without taking it off. One day, after he came to my place, he disappeared. I found the dormitory conditions unsatisfactory, so I lived off campus. Occasionally, I would invite Lin Cheng over to my place and cook for him. He was always reluctant, saying, "It's improper to visit a woman's home before marriage." I thought to myself, this isn't the Qing dynasty, and we're a normal couple. What's the big deal? After reminiscing for a long time, I realized that every time Lin Cheng came to my place, some small trinkets would go missing. I'm not very good at tidying up, and my room is often messy. If something was lost, it was lost. Nothing too valuable, but my boyfriend stealing my things to give to someone else, that's just disgusting. You don't need to give gifts on holidays, you're not lacking in them. Festivals are just consumer traps. He said that, but he still accepted everything I gave him without hesitation. What he skimped on were all my gifts. Last year, he bought me something, and I thought he had a change of heart. Little did I know he was just waiting to take it back. I never thought I'd be so blind at such a young age. It was so obvious, yet in my past life, I didn't notice it at all. Maybe I was too blindly confident. Just as I was beating my chest in frustration over my own stupidity, there was a knock at the door. Through the video doorbell, I saw Lin Cheng standing outside with a large pile of things. The doorbell can talk, but I don't want to open the door. What a rare guest. He never came when invited before. He looked around nervously, like someone going to a shady massage parlor afraid of being spotted by an acquaintance. I had no idea that being with me was such a burden to him. Open the door first. I was speechless. Leave the stuff and go. Min, I came to see how you're doing. He swallowed his pride, condescending to lower himself. A slap then a sweet treat. He didn't invent this trick, so why is he so sure I'll fall for it? Not dead, you can rest assured. He couldn't keep it up for more than 3 sentences. Enough, you've already suffered the consequences for insulting Enine for no reason. I'll have Enine clear things up, and don't you dare do it again. After all, we're still boyfriend and girlfriend. You should stop preparing for the graduate exam and marry me soon. Settle down early. What use is Education for a woman, you need a home, I'll move in tomorrow, let's try living together first, what a huge favor. It made me laugh. How can you be so shameless? You two say something, and netizens just believe it, they want evidence, you're all talk. But even with all that blabbering, you're still called a fast food king. I'll move in tomorrow and try living together first, what a wonderful blessing. It made me laugh. Why is your face so big? How come you two believe everything your partner says? They just want proof. You have such a small mouth and you're so talkative. You're actually being called the fast food priest by others. He was red-faced with anger. I gave you a way out, but you wouldn't take it. Do you really think your family's dirty money can just sweep this under the rug? And now you're playing the victim. What grievances do you have? If anyone's been wronged, it's Ian. I didn't want to argue with him. It was a waste of breath. I called security, and there was a commotion outside. He suddenly pressed against the door and shouted, "Zhao Min, are you back too?" My heart skipped a beat. That was a strange thing to say. My phone suddenly pushed an article to me with the headline, "When stimulated, people may awaken memories that aren't their own." Smack. The phone fell to the ground. I had just been provoking him when a security guard came and chased him away like a thief. He had never suffered such a great humiliation. Perhaps overwhelmed by anger, he awakened the memories of his past life in an extreme emotional state. Shortly after he left, I opened my phone again and found that Xiaoyin had hidden all her posts on moments he woke up too late. I had already saved everything. I suddenly felt a thrill. Beating him with an information gap was nothing special. Wouldn't it be even more exciting to have him, reborn, trampled under my feet, under such fair conditions? What new tricks could my husband, who was as calm as a chrysanthemum, possibly come up with? Time was tight, so I quickly compiled my spending records in Link City and the screenshots of Xiaoyin's moments into a PDF. I like to keep receipts when I shop. I can find evidence for everything he stole. One coincidence means nothing, but when everything matches, it speaks volumes. During the days I fell out with Lin Qing, I wasn't idle either. I often followed him to see what he was up to. He's a complete freeloader who will never change. Since he couldn't mooch off me, he latched onto Xiaoyin, and I secretly took quite a few photos. I went through all the gifts Xiaoyin showed off, and every time, luxury bags were placed in the most prominent spot. These aren't gifts an ordinary fan could afford. She's just a small-time influencer with a few thousand followers, and her usual expenses are already high. Where did she get the money to buy so many bags? I sent all these bags to my bestie, who knows her stuff. She can tell real from fake at a glance. Holy crap, these are all real, but they look familiar. Wang Yu seems to have bought these bags. I heard they were gifts for his girlfriend. She's the biggest gossip, and Wang Yu has been our classmate since childhood. He's a rich kid. I found that he did post about buying bags for his girlfriend, and after checking one by one, it was pretty much spot on. Lin Qing has been reborn, so he's hard to mess with, but Xiaoyin should be easy to scare after figuring it out. I put my original SIM card back in and openly added Xiaoyin on WeChat. Her messages reeked of smugness. "Sister Minmin, are you here to apologize?" "It's okay, I forgive you," I smirked. "I'm afraid you'll be on your knees begging daddy to let you off." I sent the PDF over. "Take a good look. You're just making up a sob story, but I have evidence also." "Did you think I wouldn't know that Wang Yu and I were elementary school classmates? Want me to send over what happened between you and Lin Qing? If Wang Yu finds out that you've been using his money to support another man behind his back, you know better than I do what he'll do to you." Soon after, a call came through. "Zhao Min, what do you want?" Her voice was trembling uncontrollably. I watched as the fish took the bait. "First, don't tell Lin Qing about what happened today. Second, apologize to me on all platforms." Okay, I'll agree to everything. I'll break it off with Brother Qing," she pleaded repeatedly. Unfortunately, I never keep my word with a two-faced woman like her. He fabricated details about Lin Qing and Xiaoyin with embellishments, and even sent all our chats and calls to Wang Yu. He was drinking outside when he heard about it, and people said he smashed the table in a fit of rage on the spot. Now Xiaoyin is going to have a tough time. This spoiled brat not only forced Xiaoyin to apologize to me but also ordered her to go live and confess everything about how she deceived his feelings and framed me. Wang Yu stormed over to Xiaoyin's school. Since the amount involved was too large and she was suspected of fraud, she was directly expelled. She had fought tooth and nail to escape the mountains through exams, only to end up back where she started. This time, Lin Qing learned his lesson and kept his mouth shut. All the netizens' anger was directed at Xiaoyin, while he managed to stay out of the spotlight and wasn't too affected. After things had calmed down for a while, he released a statement. It was the classic, "I just see her as a little sister." He recounted how he helped her get into college and how he had always maintained proper boundaries with her, without any overly close behavior. Surprisingly, some so-called friends even took his side and spoke up for him. It seems he didn't waste his second chance at life. He's recently learned how to handle things properly, shedding his former aloofness. He took the initiative to treat his roommates and club colleagues to a meal. The money was definitely taken from Xiaoyin, which essentially meant he used Wang Yu's funds to whitewash his own image, having eaten his food. I felt obliged to say a few words in his defense. Netizens also judged him as an innocent good man deceived by Xiaoyin that day. As soon as I went downstairs, I saw Lin Qing leaning against the wall waiting for me. I glanced back. The surveillance camera was only a meter away, and the security booth was nearby, so he wouldn't dare do anything. "What's up?" I spoke first. Lin Qing approached, his demeanor different now. "Minmin, I have to say you're a good wife. You've changed me a lot and indeed, your techniques were very effective." He had always been arrogant, and now that he was reborn, his ego would be through the roof. I gave a faint smile. "Of course, stray dogs only eat what others leave behind. Do you want me to chew it up and feed it to you? Don't be so sharp-tongued now." As befits an old man in his 80s, Lin Qing was much more composed. "You're just angry that I married Xiaoyin after you passed away. I've already realized my mistake. This time, we're united as husband and wife, which is naturally different from our past life." He reached out his hand to me. I spat the chewed gum directly into his palm. "Don't flatter yourself. After failing to get a promotion in my previous life, I started my own business. To my surprise, it was a huge success, smooth sailing all the way, and even Lin Qing got to enjoy a life of abundance. Now he was no longer the poor boy who crawled out of a mountain valley. He had grown accustomed to the good life and couldn't bear even a bit of hardship otherwise, nor would he play games with me. Making money the right way is too hard. It's better to live off someone else. That's the truth he learned in his 80 years of life. Lin Qing glared at me, the bubble gum in his hand neither thrown away nor kept. "Zhao Min, this is the last time. You just wait and see." He turned and left. He was like chewed up gum, useless and clingy. He couldn't afford to take a gap year to prepare for the graduate exam, so he had to find a job first. But what I didn't expect was that by scrimping and saving, he managed to win over Miss Yang, the daughter of a prestigious family, and naturally got a job at her family's company. Truly, congratulations are in order. At least he has a decent face to show for it. A leopard can't change its spots, and a man who loves to be a social climber probably can't change even in 3 lifetimes. Only by sending him to hell and making him fall into the realm of beasts will he stop causing harm. Miss Yang didn't care about the rumors and his past. She firmly believed there must be some misunderstanding, and her dear boyfriend was simply a good man who was free from desires and never fought with others. She specifically sought me out for this and arranged to meet me at a cafe. "Miss Zhao, you and Qing had some unpleasantness in the past, but that's all over now." She was referring to the fact that because of me, Lin Qing had been struggling in the industry before. No company wanted him. And now that the Yang family has taken him in, he's not producing results. It's hard for Mr. Yang to justify, and the salary he's asking for not bad at all. After I got into graduate school, my advisor often took me along to work on projects with the team. Lin Qing overestimates himself and always likes to compete with my team. He's a loser, but he just can't see it himself. In his past life, his professorship was a sham, built on my money and connections. His so-called experience only works in the lab and classroom. It can't be applied to large-scale production, which is why the Yang family has been losing money all along. I feel like after his rebirth, he's blindly overconfident, maybe even less motivated than before. There was no way around it. Even with Yang backing him up, he couldn't land a single deal. I set down my coffee, the rich bitterness spreading across my tongue. "You're overthinking it. I just didn't let him cut in line like before, because now I have you." Of course, my parents felt for me, after learning that Lin Qing was a despicable scumbag. They did their fair share to meddle, and I didn't stop them. I couldn't let their good intentions go to waste. Anyway, he and I are planning to get married, so let's just let bygones be bygones. I apologize for the wrongs he's done. Miss Yang stood up and bowed. I also stood up, stepping aside to avoid the gesture. Lin Qing has learned to be clever, knowing how to please people. I looked at the ring on her finger. She smiled sheepishly. "Yeah, he treats me well. If he treats you well, would he give you a fake?" I raised an eyebrow. My mother had a collection of items, including jewelry, so through her teachings and example, My ability to appraise jewelry was higher than most people's. I can guarantee you this is a fake, but he did put thought into it. This fake is a high-quality imitation. Ordinary people can't tell the difference. Miss Young awkwardly covered her finger. He must have been fooled by someone. I'll talk to him about it when I get back. He's a man, if even an apology has to be made on his behalf. It's hard to imagine how there could be any hope in marrying him. It was the advice of someone who had been through it, but unfortunately, she didn't listen. The next time I heard news about the two of them, it had become the talk of the entire city of A. Miss Young was pregnant out of wedlock, and Mr. Young was furious. He disapproved of his daughter's marriage to the poor young man. In the end, Lin Chung was bold enough to get his daughter pregnant, using the child to force a confrontation. I kept sighing. He used to be at least a hypocrite, but now, having shed that layer, he was worse than a beast. He drove his luxury car and once again arrived at the entrance of my apartment building. Zhao Min, when will you understand the principle that a young man should not be underestimated? I sneered, as if watching a dog in its death throes, and said in a low voice, you know what? I thought you still had a conscience, but I was overthinking it, saying, that won't provoke me. I'm no longer a hot-headed youth. Learning from you was the right move, using every means to achieve my goals. This feeling is wonderful. His eyes were filled with greedy light. I shook my head. Learning from me. He was already a rotten seed from the start. It was desire that lit the fuse within him, and all the evil burst forth. What did that have to do with me? The evil is 10 feet tall, but the good is 100 feet tall. He laughed. Zhao Min, I'll wait for you to kneel down and beg me. Watching his retreating figure, how could I possibly let him take away the Young family's entire legacy? What he didn't know was that I had already accounted for everything he stole back then. I just hadn't dealt with it yet. After being disciplined, Xia Yin became much more obedient and willingly came forward to testify, but Lin Cheng was as resilient as a cockroach, and Miss Yang would protect him for the sake of her unborn child. That day, we met again at the same coffee shop, but this time I was the one who invited her. She was simple-minded and bore no ill will toward me. Her ex, it was clear she was a poor girl who genuinely loved that jerk. When is the wedding date set? She gave a shy smile. The 15th of next month. I nodded and handed her my phone. Her face turned pale. Miss Zhao, I can pay you back all the money, please. I tapped my fingers on the table. It's not about the money. I just don't want scum like him to get away with it. What will you gain by marrying him and having this child? Because of a father with a criminal record, the child will lose opportunities they deserve in the future. The more I spoke, the paler her face became, until she could barely hold herself together. Take care of yourself too. I'm not targeting you or the child in your belly. Someone like him can't be kept around, for your sake and mine. Just as she was about to beg me again, I handed her a brown paper bag. I didn't want to upset you further, but I have to make things clear today. She flipped through the documents over and over again, then slammed them heavily on the table, sobbing with her head in her hands. How could he do this to me? I loved him so much. Having tasted the good life, Lin Cheng's appetite had grown. These were the dual contracts he had signed with the Young family, siphoning off hundreds of millions from their funds. If I hadn't uncovered it through my covert investigation, and if the Young family's accounts hadn't shown irregularities, Miss Yang's father would have been the one to take the blame. Once her father was locked up, her life would truly be at Lin Cheng's mercy. Even after all this, you still want to take his side. I gently shattered the last line of defense in her heart. She was blinded by love, but that didn't mean she could throw away all principles in my past life. My miserable existence was swapped with hers, yet I felt neither relief nor joy now, earnestly advising her and pulling her out of the quagmire is also a way to save me from back then. I first reported it to the police under the pretext of theft. With both witnesses and physical evidence at hand, he was summoned several times before he finally showed up, dragging his feet, with a nonchalant demeanor. He thought the Yang family still had his back. Zhao Min, don't waste your time. My time is valuable. His entire outfit was a cut above what it used to be, and he gave Yang Xiao. My sister bought counterfeit goods, and she gave him her whole heart. I really didn't expect this. We were in a relationship at the time, and you're being so stingy, making such a big deal out of such a small thing. That air of his, treating money like dirt, came back again. I'm willing to give all the money back to you. Consider it a blessing for the unborn child. I have to say, since he entered society, he hasn't learned anything real, but he's mastered the art of being passive-aggressive to perfection. This is all being recorded. So please choose your words carefully. You think you still have money, still such a dreamer. I clapped my hands. Lin Qing stepped back a few paces, his face filled with shock and uncertainty. What did you say? He had become much sharper, but unfortunately, it was too late. Miss Yang walked in, a mere child trying to take over the Yang family. I wish I could tear out your tendons and drink your blood. She stepped forward. She slapped him several times. He was completely stunned, holding his swollen cheek. He asked in disbelief, "What's wrong with you? We've seen through your scheme." I threw the documents in front of him. Although Lin Qing was foolish, he still had some cunning tricks up his sleeve. As the saying goes, a crafty rabbit has 3 burrows. He had long prepared an escape route abroad, planning to take the money and run, leaving the mess for the Yang family. He remains at large, beyond the reach of the law. Rather than rashly arresting him and alerting the enemy, it's better to use the theft as bait to lure him out, leaving him no chance to escape. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, Lin Qing knelt on the ground. You've set me up. Well done. If you had known this day would come, why did you do it in the first place? I looked down at him. He burst into manic laughter, suddenly stood up, and pulled out a small knife to stab at me. If you won't let me have peace, then die. A police officer, quick as a flash, kicked him away. The knife flew out of his hand, grazing my cheek. It didn't hurt, but a few drops of blood seeped out and trickled down to my neck. My injury was nothing, but for him, it was another crime added to the list. Through the efforts of my parents and the Yang family, he was ultimately sentenced to life imprisonment, destined to spend the rest of his days in prison. A person as calm as a chrysanthemum, being two-faced is always better than having a malicious heart. He never expected that his cleverness would backfire, leaving him far less glorious than in his past life. Miss Yang suffered a great setback in love, and she said she might never have the courage to marry again. She loves children and couldn't bear to part with this one. No matter who the child's father is, it will always be your child. No one can change that. If you want it, keep it. Later, she took my advice and gave birth to the child, who grew up healthy and strong. After much persuasion from my advisor, I chose to pursue a doctoral degree. During my studies, I started a business. With the experience from my past life and solid knowledge accumulated, by the time I graduated, the company was already on the right track. It was then that I realized I could have had everything from the start. After work that day, I encountered an old Taoist priest in tattered clothes on the street. I casually bought him some food from a convenience store. He took it and wolfed it down. Suddenly, he looked up at me, his dim old eyes shooting out a sharp gleam. You are someone who returned from the underworld with lingering regrets. I neither confirmed nor denied it. He smacked his lips and continued, you also brought someone back. Haha, interesting, interesting. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. No one can escape, even the dead are dragged back to suffer. This is the cycle of the world. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished. I wasn't afraid, just felt it was strange. After that, I kept doing good deeds. Only by leaving something behind could I justify coming back. I repay grudges, but there are things in life more important than hatred. Story 2. In my previous life, I spent an ordinary lifetime with Lu Zuran. Lying in the hospital bed, he held my hand and said, Jianian, it's nice that you're with me in the end. He didn't regret choosing me between his white moonlight and me. He was also content that I had properly arranged his life, work, and everything else. However, I could tell that I was his second choice from his words. I was tired of being someone else's compromise, so I returned to the year when I was 20. I asked myself if I was willing to experience the same life again. The answer was no. I chose to stay away from him. I was married to Lu Zuran for 70 years, and he passed away at the age of 100. He had a faint smile on his face when he left, but I stood up and looked out the window. I thought that if there was an afterlife, I wouldn't want to be Lu Zuran's wife anymore. When I opened my eyes, I saw the campus outside the window with Chinese parasol trees. Suddenly, a piece of chalk landed on me. Su Jianian, come and repeat what I just said. I stood up and saw the teacher of aerodynamics standing on the podium, looking at me with dissatisfaction. Someone heckled, Teacher, she's not from our class. She came to accompany her boyfriend to class. The teacher gave me a deep look and was just about to turn around to continue writing on the blackboard. Suddenly, Lu Zuran beside me said, she's not my girlfriend. The whole class fell silent. I could hear my heart pounding. At this time, Lu Zuran was young and green, yet he had a maturity and stability far beyond that of ordinary people. He had always been cold and aloof, and I was deeply attracted to him at first sight. At this moment, he was also cold, distant, and unfeeling. He let others deal with all the embarrassment on their own. I smiled. He was still the same as in my previous life. I said, yes, teacher. I'm not his girlfriend, and I'm not a student in your class either. I'm sorry for disturbing your class. I'll leave now. Luzurin paused in his action of turning the book. He blocked the exit and didn't move aside for a long time. After class, the teacher asked me to follow her out. Before she spoke, she tapped my head with her finger. Do you like him that much? Can't you see that he doesn't treat you well? I nodded. I can see it, Aunt. I won't come to audit your class anymore. My aunt didn't believe me and confirmed it again before going back to the office. Someone called me from behind, ran over with a smile, and put their hand on my shoulder. Jian-Ian, shall we go buy popsicles together? The newly released mung bean popsicles are really delicious. It's on me. Seeing me shake my head, Tang Si smiled brightly and immediately changed the invitation. Then how about going to my place to watch the newly bought color TV? You have no idea, the picture is extremely clear. I'll play Zhang Xinjia's Excessive Love for you, let you go crazy, let you indulge, thinking that one day you'll be touched. Tang Si clenched her fist, pretending it was a microphone, and sang the lyrics. I curved my lips slightly. I'm going abroad soon. I have a lot of things to prepare recently, so I can't hang out with you. Tang Si took my arm and said with regret, ah. Then she asked, what about me? You can be with Luzurin. It'll be much more convenient without me tagging along. Tang Si's hand slowly dropped, and the smile on her face disappeared. When I looked up again, I saw Luzurin. He was leaning against the door not far away, his head tilted back against the wall. He looked over when he heard us and said, leave her alone, let her be. He walked forward, picked up the bag in Tang Si's hand, and said, bothersome. He didn't look at me, but his words pierced my heart word by word. In 70 years, actually, this kind of scene was long overdue. Hearing it suddenly still made my heart ache, but in the past, I would use all kinds of methods to soften the pain until it finally merged with my flesh and blood. I said, aren't you going to ask me when I'm leaving? Luzurin gave a cold snort. Tang Si frowned and interrupted him, asking me, Jian-Ian, when are you leaving? Why are you going abroad all of a sudden? I raised my hand to block the sunlight and looked towards the end of the corridor. When the plane tree avenue changes color, it'll be soon. After that, I didn't go to school anymore. Studying abroad was a sudden idea. It would take a lot of time to prepare all the necessary things. When I was looking up information in the study, my aunt suddenly knocked on the door and said to me, my favorite student is here. He said he came to visit me, but he left his things and is lingering here and refuses to leave. Do you want to come out and take a look? I smiled helplessly. Just leave the door open, Aunt. You can just go and prepare your lessons. In the afternoon, although it was early summer, we could occasionally hear the chirping of cicadas, but there were no footsteps coming when I looked up from the web page, it was getting dark outside. I walked to the living room. It was as if Luzurin had never been here. The setting sun's afterglow filled the entire floor of the living room. It was somewhat lonely. In the next few days, I finalized the destination of my study abroad. I grew up with my aunt. My parents left me some money and had their own lives in my previous life. Until the end of my life, I never saw them again. However, I was in a state where no one interfered with me. I was quite free. I told my aunt the destination. She said, it's a good place. Currently, this country has the most advanced aerospace field. Xiao Lu has asked me where you're going these days. It's not easy to make him care about other people's affairs. So, are you going to tell him yourself? I couldn't help laughing. Aunt, didn't you dislike me for being so insensitive and always trying to get between Luzurin and Tang Si? You even felt ashamed because of me and didn't let me get close to you at school. My aunt sighed. I'm most afraid that you're just being impulsive. If you've really thought it through, don't go back on your decision. I said, don't worry, Aunt. The next day, I went back to school. When I met my classmates, I found out that the news of my studying abroad had spread quickly. When my roommate and I were packing my things, she couldn't help clicking her tongue. Jian-Ian, didn't you say you don't have parents? How can you still go abroad to study? My dad said that currently, those who can study abroad are really rare. How can you go abroad, an exchange student? Although your grades are good, they're not that good. It's too exaggerated. Are you really going to study abroad? I casually picked up a trendy t-shirt, looked at it front and back, then I threw it into the trash can. My roommate's outstretched hand froze in midair. I asked, didn't Tang Si tell you? I won't give you the clothes. She should have promised you some benefits. My roommate quickly explained, it's not like that, Jian-Ian. It wasn't Tang Si who asked me to say that. And she didn't give me any benefits either, I said. Oh, so you're just being mean-spirited then. I picked up the packed things and walked out of the dormitory. My roommate followed me out. I stopped at the door and pointed with my index finger in the air. I always thought there was a thief in the dormitory. Things were always disappearing. I wonder who will be like a beggar and pick up the clothes. This time, my roommate's face changed. She turned back to the dormitory and lay on the table crying. I walked out of the dormitory. The weather was really nice. Autumn was probably coming soon. What came before autumn was an unexpected guest. When I got to the school gate, someone reached out and took my suitcase. You're going to Michigan, isn't your major diplomacy? Don't you plan to engage in the same work as your parents in the future? I was surprised. It seemed that Luzern had heard a lot of things about me that hadn't had time to spread yet. I said, no. I think they're too carefree. Maybe I can meet them even if I don't become a diplomat. Perhaps they can take the plane I build when they're flying around. Why isn't that a kind of encounter? Suddenly, the suitcase in Luzern's hand slipped out of his grasp. The luggage scattered all over the ground. The suitcase was really inconvenient. I squatted down to pick up the things. Luzern kicked it irritably. These things are worth you coming back specially. Don't you need to say goodbye to me? I said. What identity should I use to say goodbye to you? Luzern was a bit confused. In our previous life, we got together 5 years later, during the year of Qianqi. At that time, we had both graduated. Tang Si went abroad to study, met an American tycoon abroad, and got married quickly. Luzern then proposed to me. Even though we hadn't seen each other for 3 years since graduation, I agreed to marry him without thinking. When I belittled myself, I thought that time could overcome all difficulties. As long as Luzern was mine, I would have enough time to achieve everything slowly, including making him love me. It turned out that 70 years weren't enough, but just a few days after I was reborn, when I stopped revolving around Luzern, I actually discovered the signs that I had dreamed of in my previous life, but I didn't believe it. I wasn't in Luzern's heart, at least not now. He was just not used to it. I didn't wait for Luzern to answer. Luzern, you're the only one who knows that my parents are diplomats, right? Others always thought that I had no parents, no relatives. For example, Tang Si, who was walking towards us. Luzern was impatient. I didn't tell anyone. You don't like to talk about your family affairs with others, do you? Yes, among us, only Tang Si thought that I was an orphan. Luzern slightly furrowed his brow. What do you want to say? Si has never said anything about you. You should trust her. Everyone thought that I had the best relationship with her. She was the one who should keep my secrets the most. I didn't comment. When Tang Si smiled and waved at us, then ran towards us in her flowing skirt, I took a step back, haphazardly closed the scattered suitcase, and threw it beside the trash can. Then I turned around and walked out of the school gate. The news of my going abroad became more and more widespread. Many people contacted me, some envious, some saying, if you become wealthy, don't forget us. Later, some people even suggested holding a farewell party for me in the karaoke private room. Luzern sat silently in the darkest corner, giving off an aura of keep away. The colorful lights in the private room were flickering. When everyone saw me come in, they cheered. Welcome the first overseas student from our college. Come on. Let's welcome the protagonist of today to make a grand entrance. Great overseas student, sing a song for us. Don't look down on us just because you're going to study abroad. You have to speak English when you study in the United States, right? Sue, can you speak English? Why don't you sing an English song for us? Looking around, there were many familiar faces. Most of them were Tang Si's ex-boyfriends and their brothers. I took the microphone and smiled softly. I'll sing a Chinese song. I just learned it recently. Before anyone could make things difficult for me, I ordered the accompaniment myself. When I sang the line, since love makes it hard to distinguish right from wrong, don't run away, face it bravely. Luzern in the corner moved slightly. The shadow cast by the hair falling over his forehead made it hard to see his emotions. There was also a lyric before that. I really want to give you another chance and ask you who you really love. He remained indifferent. In this relationship involving 3 people, I should quietly draw the curtain. After the song ended, someone was stunned for a moment and then took the lead in clapping. I walked to the sofa booth, opened a bottle of soda, and took a sip. The excitement in the private room continued. They seemed to have forgotten the original purpose and were scrambling to grab the microphone. All kinds of out-of-tune voices wafted out, making people laugh from time to time. Luzern suddenly said, Su Jianian, you said that if you love someone, you should be brave, right? I didn't hesitate. Yes, whether it's loving or not loving. His gaze fell on Tang Si, who was already mingling with a group of boys and was In the spotlight among the crowd, so it doesn't matter that she has so many boyfriends, right? She just changes boyfriends often and hasn't had any moral issues. I always believe that she's just a passionate person. Luzerin turned to look at me. So I don't believe that she leaked your secret, even including today's party, even if she's involved. I don't believe that she had any bad intentions. Jianian, I never thought you were someone who would insinuate. You've disappointed me this time. I shook the half-full bottle of orange soda in my hand. So what? What then? What? Luzerin, you actually always knew that I liked you, right? His gaze suddenly evaded and turned to the side. I continued, you think that the one who likes someone without permission should be the despicable one. No matter what a passionate person does, there's always some hidden reason. The despicable one deserves to bear all the blame. I've never thought that way. Luzerin leaned forward, picked up a bottle of soda. Just as he put it to his mouth, he noticed a lipstick mark on it. He instinctively looked up at Tangsini, then he felt uncomfortable and put it down. I smiled. Luzerin, you're also quite despicable. Your love is like the stinky sludge in the gutter, too afraid to be exposed to the sun. But everyone knows about it and pinches their noses when they hear about it. Luzerin's expression changed. He picked up the bottle of soda and drank it all in one go. It seemed like he was being stubborn. This was something rarely seen in him, but I was extremely disgusted. I stood up. If you like someone, you can court them, but you don't have to sacrifice others. Luzerin, I won't be your excuse anymore. It would be best if we stopped having any contact. Luzerin didn't think that Tangsini leaked the rumors about me at school. He also didn't think that this party, which had so many obvious connections with her, was done out of malice. He thought that everything was my deliberate slander. It didn't matter. I came here just to say a final "it's not worth it" to the past. After the karaoke party ended, I focused on my language courses. When the courses were almost over, Tangsini still contacted me. I wasn't surprised. When she saw me, she still put her arm around my shoulder. First, bring me that box of chocolates. Eat it. My uncle brought it back from Italy. It's really delicious. There are nuts in it too, and it smells so fragrant. I immediately opened one piece and put it in my mouth, gently sipping on it. She slowly lowered her arm. I thought you were angry with me. It's good that you're not, I said. Which thing are you referring to? Tangsini was taken aback for a moment. It's nothing. As long as you're not unhappy, let's not talk about the past. By the way, Jianian, why did you suddenly decide to study abroad? I've never heard you mention your parents before. To avoid making you sad. I've never brought it up either. Turns out I was wrong. I didn't expect you to come from a well-off family with loving parents. Why did you keep it from me so strictly? It's really not nice of you. We're supposed to be good friends after all. Well, we're not really good friends. Luzerin and I got to know each other when we were young. His mother had a very good relationship with my aunt. My aunt is not only his teacher but also his elder in private. Luzerin and I became familiar with each other after interacting a few times. However, Luzerin is not affectionate. After knowing each other for more than 10 years, he still seems to get along better with Tangsini, who he has known for just over a year, than with me. I said, because I'm obedient, and with the unfortunate background you fabricated for me, and you often appearing by my side, people always mistakenly think that you're not actually that bad. Tangsini, I admit that I also had my own motives for often going out with you. I know that Luzerin likes you, but he doesn't dare to admit it. With me showing up with you too, he can bear fewer rumors and gossip. Luzerin doesn't dare to admit that he's in love with a woman with a bad reputation. When the three of us go out together, he can pretend that his target is me, not Tangsini. The three of us each have our own secrets that are not meant to be told to outsiders. No one cares about the others. It would be best if everything ended here. Su Jianian, are you crazy? Tangsini clearly didn't think so. You said Luzerin doesn't dare to admit that he likes me. Huh, what a joke. You overestimate yourself. You're just a dull and boring person. You're a college student, yet you're not ashamed of yourself. Do you think you can be seen as a good person just by being with me? Even if I'm not with you, all the girls will say I'm promiscuous, but inside they'll be insanely jealous, and all the boys will be eager to date me. I often went out with you just to use you as a foil for me. What makes you think you're so special? She snatched the opened box of chocolates from me. You still have the nerve to eat it, you poor thing. What about studying abroad? You, an orphan with no parents, are really good at pretending. These days, nightclubs are popular, and in every school, there are female college students secretly working as escorts. Are you really going abroad or working as a prostitute? Everyone with eyes can tell. I understood. It turned out that Luzerin hadn't told her about my actual family background. Luzerin is Always like this. He has his flaws, but he also has his bottom line. Coupled with his good looks, he can really easily become the youth of someone dim and ordinary. I smiled self-deprecatingly. I don't want to think about right and wrong anymore. Since we've had a falling out, it's better if we never see each other again. Tangsini, you'd better behave yourself. Don't do anything absurd. I know a lot of your secrets that can't be told, you know. Tangsini clearly didn't take my words to heart. When my study abroad visa was approved, I went to school to pick up the documents, but the school held me back and insisted that I bring a parent. The school could see my information. It showed that I have both parents. The principal called me into his office and said to me, "Student Sue, you've been well-behaved, quiet, and introverted, and you've never caused any trouble for the school. Recently, you've let the rumors spread without making any statement, which has had a great impact on the school's reputation. I'm very disappointed. I know you're going to study abroad, but this is also your alma mater, which has cultivated and trained you. You can't be ungrateful, otherwise, I don't know how to write the recommendation letter from the school. It's really unreasonable, but since things have come to this, I have to solve it. The rumors in school have now turned into claims that my studying abroad is fake and that I'm actually dropping out to work in a nightclub. Since I'm an orphan, I can't stand the poor life and want to take a shortcut. Such a reason is quite persuasive. Walking on campus, I could hear people discussing everywhere. They said that if people like me aren't severely punished, it will corrupt the social atmosphere and lead more female college students astray. It's not even the internet age yet. It's hard to imagine how much effort Tangsini put in to achieve this effect. I used to give my roommates a lot of things. As soon as they touched the fabric, they could tell that the items were expensive, but they said in the chat room that all my things were given to me out of Tangsini's kindness. I took them back and said they were mine, so the charge of being vain was thrown at me. It wasn't difficult to quell the rumors. I showed the proof of my account deposit, which showed that I had 1,000,000 yuan in savings since I was born. Without going back 20 years, 1,000,000 yuan in the 1990s was already a huge amount. As soon as the deposit slip was shown, many people fell silent. I didn't explain anything else. After all, as a top university in the country, it's not a place where unfounded rumors can run wild. I successfully obtained all the materials I needed for studying abroad. When the admission notice from the University of Michigan arrives, I can go to the United States. It's already midsummer, and the school is about to have a vacation. I thought everyone had already forgotten about this matter, but Tangsini, with her eyes red from crying, slapped me the moment I opened the door. I looked at the person standing beside her. "This is my aunt's house. How dare you bring someone here to hit me?" Lu Zurin frowned. "I didn't know Sini was going to do this. Can you not think of me like this? Jianian, have you realized that you've been different from before since that class? You always speculate about others with malice. Is it because you were too silent and quiet before, and you didn't talk much, so this side of you wasn't revealed? Could it be that I didn't really know the real you before?" He's being unreasonable. I instinctively wanted to call the police, but then I suddenly remembered that surveillance cameras weren't popular at that time and there wouldn't be any witnesses either, so I directly raised my hand and slapped him back. I slapped Lu Zurin. "Lu Zurin, you're not only deaf but also blind. You came here to act crazy for no reason. I don't welcome you. Get out." Lu Zurin was stunned and held my hand. "You hit me. What's wrong with you? Are you still angry because I didn't admit in public that you're my girlfriend, but we're clearly not in that relationship? Is there anything wrong with me denying it?" The two of us were arguing and ignoring Tangsini. She forcefully pushed between us. She cried out loudly, "Lu Zurin, have you forgotten the purpose of our coming here today?" Lu Zurin's face turned cold. "Su Jianian, apologize to Sini." I laughed out of anger. "What am I supposed to apologize for?" Tangsini cried and accused me. "Su Jianian, I thought of you as my good sister all this time. Why did you imply to Zurin that I was the one who started the rumors about you? I thought your parents were gone, but I wasn't the only one who thought so. Why do you think it was me?" I looked at Lu Zurin. "Did you ask her?" "Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted to find out the truth." "There's really nothing wrong with that," I said. "You were indeed the only one. If there were others who thought the same, you were the one who leaked it first. Tangsini, you once joked with me that you had never heard me talk about my family matters, and you asked if it was because there was nothing to talk about. I smiled but didn't say anything. You took it as a tacit agreement, and the next day, my roommate started rummaging through my things, looking for photos of my family. So what? It doesn't prove that I said it. Can't others have the same speculation? Tangsini still tried to defend herself. I said, "I gave my roommate a bottle of French Perfume once, she told me that she met you in the cafeteria, you pretended to be worried and said you were afraid that I was unhappy because of my family situation and that it might cause problems if I kept it in my heart. That night, there was even a late-night chat in the dormitory, and they specifically forced me to talk about my family, Tangsini. It was not long after we registered for school, and the military training hadn't even ended. Do you remember, Su Jianian? Lu Zuran suddenly roared. Since then, you've known what Tangsini did to you, and you still pretended to be her friend for a year. Oh, no, it was all fake. Have you ever been sincere to anyone? You didn't consider her a friend, and you didn't care about me either. All these years, I thought you. Turns out it was all fake. I crossed my arms and leaned against the door, looking at him. What about me and you, Lu Zuran? You knew that I liked you for so many years, and you still took advantage of my feelings for you to get close to Tangsini with a clear conscience. Do you have the right to criticize me? Lu Zuran suddenly froze, turned his head aside, and his Adam's apple moved several times. Then don't go abroad. As long as you don't go abroad, I can. I interrupted Lu Zuran. I didn't want to hear what he was going to say next. Who do you think you are to ask me this? Lu Zuran, I don't love you anymore. I used to always focus on you. Now, when I look around the world, I find that life is so vast. Compared to all this, you're too insignificant. Sorry, I really have to go to work now. Lu Zuran persisted. Why don't you ask me what my relationship with Tangsini is? Why don't you ask whose child Tangsini is carrying? Why don't you ask me how I found out that you're not at the University of Michigan? Su Jianian, I came to the United States for you. I didn't stop. I walked out the door. After turning the corner, I adjusted my volunteer badge and left it all behind. Soon, I learned the answers to the questions that Lu Zuran had asked me. Tangsini came to see me. She said that on the day I shut her and Lu Zuran out, she asked Lu Zuran, Su Jianian said you don't dare to admit that you like me. Do you dare or not? As long as you dare, break up with your current boyfriend and be with you. I'll only be with you. That day, they kissed just behind the door. They were very high profile. They wanted to hold a party in a karaoke place to celebrate and announce it to everyone, but no one could get in touch with me. At that time, I had already boarded the plane to the United States. Su Jianian, you're the most scheming one. You've hidden it so deeply. It's so easy for you to leave whenever you want. All these years, you watched me pretending to be a young lady from a wealthy family in front of you and showing off my superiority. You must have laughed at me a lot in your heart, right? Tangsini held a cup of coffee in both hands and took a sip from time to time. Seeing that she didn't seem to be stopping, I still reminded her. You're not supposed to drink coffee now. It will make your stomach feel very uncomfortable. Tangsini suddenly got angry and put the coffee cup down heavily. You're still as kind as ever, but Su Jianian, what's so great about that? If I were like you, with parents who were young ladies and young masters before the founding of New China and who left such a large fortune for their daughter, I could be just like you, or even give away money generously to benefit the people. But all those things that I showed off in front of you, which you didn't care about at all, I paid a huge price for. You, and all those people like you, whether they're rich or poor, look down on me from the bottom of your hearts. If you were in my situation, living in the mud, you might not be any better than me. I also took a sip of coffee and asked her, have you said enough? I'm not a trash can. I have no obligation to listen to this. Tangsini looked up in surprise. You used to be willing to listen. Indeed, who asked you to be so despicable before? And like Lu Zuran, for him, you were willing to do anything, including being patient and getting along with me. Seeing that I was losing patience, she showed a triumphant smile. Do you want to know whose child is in my belly? It's Lu Zuran's. On the night I left the country, without me in the karaoke private room, Lu Zuran shook off Tangsini and left. That night, Tangsini indulged herself like crazy. She replaced the soda with wine, and it was absurd and licentious. Tangsini got pregnant. She couldn't find the father of the child. She took the pregnancy test result and found Lu Zuran. She asked him to take responsibility. She said that if he hadn't left, the child in her belly would have been his, because that night, she wanted to give herself to him. At that time, Tangsini questioned Lu Zuran. I said I would only be with you. Don't you believe me, Lu Zuran? I've had so many boyfriends, but I never gave myself to any of them. You've ruined me. Someone else drank the wine I prepared for you. Do you know that I shouted myself hoarse when I was forced? Do you want me to go into detail about what happened then? Lu Zuran roared angrily. That's enough, but he could only grit his teeth and admit it. Do you want to know what happened to that child? Why do I now have Lu Zuran's child again? Tangsini asked me. placing her hand on her pregnant belly. I really didn't care. I set an alarm and pretended to answer a phone call. Flip phones weren't popular at that time. Tang Xinyi just stared at my phone, and the jealousy in her eyes was almost tangible. I smiled. Sorry, excuse me. After that, she didn't give up and sent me an emerging email, telling me the whole story. Su Jianian, hello, I still want to make things clear to you about the child. At that time, Lu Zuran agreed to take responsibility for me, but he immediately made an appointment for me to have an abortion. You're a woman too, so you should know how shameful an abortion is. I just had a few more relationships, and I already attracted rumors and became almost the public enemy of all the girls in the school. If I really had an abortion, I don't know how many people would despise me. I begged him not to make me go, but he was just like you. He left as soon as he said he would. He went to the United States and begged his father. His father abandoned his wife and child. When he was 2 years old, his father went south to do business, married the daughter of a wealthy family in the south, and soon after, the whole family immigrated. His father didn't want to recognize him as his son at all. He really didn't care about being embarrassed. At that time, he didn't care what others thought of him. He begged his father to use his connections and arranged for him to enter a university in the United States. But how ridiculous, you didn't go to the University of Michigan at all. He lost all his face, and still didn't get what he wanted. He deserved it. After I found out, I went to an unlicensed clinic to have an abortion and then came to the United States to find him. Before I could say or do anything, he had sex with me in the restroom at the airport. Su Jianian, this is how the child in my belly now came to be. Don't you think it's disgusting? If you think it's disgusting, then don't be with Lu Zuran. You don't lack anything now. It's better not to compete with me. Otherwise, I'll do everything I can, and I might even kill you. Perhaps she forgot to sign off, so she sent another email, marking the previous one as invalid. She typed the content again, but perhaps she was in a hurry, and she made several mistakes. There were also several places where the wording was inconsistent. Maybe she only paid for an hour's time at the internet cafe looking at the neatly written thank you and best regards. At the end, I couldn't help but laugh. I said to Lu Zuran, who came to see me and was sitting opposite me looking uneasy, did you and Tang Xinyi have a really hard time in China? It was predictable. 2 sophomore students from a prestigious university. One has always had a bad reputation and finally did something astonishing by getting pregnant before marriage. The other one seemed serious and ambitious, but privately, he got a girl pregnant. In a time when people's thoughts weren't so open, they would have been condemned by many. The fact that they came to the United States one after another could only mean that they couldn't stay in China anymore, and Tang Xinyi was eager to hold on to Lu Zuran, probably because Lu Zuran already had American citizenship. She wanted to obtain the status of a legal citizen. It shouldn't be only Lu Zuran who could help Tang Xinyi achieve all this. She had so many boyfriends and also recognized many godfathers. There should be other people who could help her. Lu Zuran interrupted my train of thought. We really couldn't stay in China anymore. Tang Xinyi refused to go to the hospital. What's more, she told everyone that the child was mine. At that time, I had already let her spread the word that we were together. Even if I denied it, no one would believe me, so I simply went abroad. I just didn't expect that I couldn't find you. He asked me if I knew how he had begged his father to get the opportunity to stay in the United States. Seeing that I wasn't interested at all, he smiled self-deprecatingly and then said, at that time, I was extremely angry and desperately needed to vent. Coincidentally, Tang Xinyi came to find me. Actually, I've regretted my impulse at that time every single moment, but she was pregnant, and this time the child is indeed mine. She didn't want to have an abortion, and I couldn't insist on making her go to the hospital. I've had to carry this regret until now. In just a short time, I had heard enough of his and Tang Xinyi's confessions. I said, it might be a twist of fate, a kind of destiny. Then what are you doing here looking for me, Lu Zuran? He was silent for a moment. Would you believe me if I said I was reborn? My scalp tingled. I hadn't thought about how to answer yet. Lu Zuran continued on his own. You should believe me. It's very likely that you were reborn too. Otherwise, how can we explain your sudden aversion to me? Did 70 years just exhaust your patience for one person? Once you were reborn, you chose a different life. Lu Zuran thought that I didn't want to repeat the trajectory of my previous life related to him in this life, that once I had it, I didn't cherish it so much anymore. I said, is it possible that after experiencing it, I just think it's not worth it? Is it also possible that in those 70 years in the past, I regretted it more than once, regretting that I didn't choose another life at the beginning? The continuously accumulated regret has earned me a chance to make a new choice. Lu Zuran suddenly opened his eyes wide. after a long time. He grabbed his hair in pain. I see. Then have you ever thought about why I could be reborn? Maybe I've also been regretting all this time, regretting that I didn't choose to love you from the very beginning. In fact, it would be a lie to say that I didn't feel the slightest bit of comfort in my heart when he said that, but it didn't mean anything. What I think about every day now is no longer how to make Luzuran love me. Moreover, what was the turning point of Luzuran's rebirth when he had his epiphany? I shouldn't have been by his side. He attributed his rebirth to me. It really didn't make sense. Luzuran admitted that he was reborn when his father almost whipped him to death with a cane and left him in the heavy rain. That was when he first came to the United States. If it was all about his own efforts and struggles, then it had nothing to do with me. I said, you should live up to the unwillingness in your heart. In the 70 years of your previous life, although you successfully entered a confidential unit with good benefits, it was enough for you to no longer live under others' roofs, but you lived a mediocre life all your life. Just like our plain and uneventful marriage, you've actually been enduring all this time, enduring the passionless daily life and the uneventful life. Luzuran, since you have a chance to start over, don't waste it. From now on, we don't have to see each other again. I thought that Luzuran and I could really go our separate ways and have nothing to do with each other in the future, but unexpectedly, in the year 2000, when I graduated and entered a foreign aerospace research institute, Luzuran and Tang Sini's child was already 4 years old. We were still involved with each other because of the past. Tang Sini went crazy and smashed things backstage at an exchange meeting and was taken away by the security guards. She said she knew me and had something to settle with me. The security guards didn't make a decision on their own. They let her stay in the lounge and wait for me to meet her after the meeting. This exchange meeting was in the field of aviation. Luzuran had just graduated this year and entered the research institute where I worked as an intern. He appeared in the audience as a background figure during the meeting. He didn't expect me to notice him. When he saw me, he was a bit nervous. Long time no see, Jianian. I nodded. Your clothes today are a bit inappropriate. Didn't you prepare in advance? He was taken aback and uncomfortably straightened his clothes. The maid at home forgot to iron the clothes in advance, so I had to change into another one. I didn't comment. Tang Sini is in the lounge. She caused trouble and said she came to find me, but I don't want to see her. You deal with it yourself. Luzuran froze completely. I really meant the maid at home. Tang Sini and I have already separated. We have no other contact except for jointly raising the child. I said, okay, then can you go and pick her up now? Luzuran punched the wall hard and muttered, damn it. Then he turned to me and said, as expected, you're the kind of person who never changes once you make up your mind. In the previous life, when you thought you loved me, you spent your whole life by my side. In this life, when you think you don't love me anymore, you don't want to have anything to do with me at all. Maybe you don't know that you're even more lovable like this. I'll deal with Tang Sini next. It will be a fair competition between you and me. Su Jianian, I want to court you, sincerely and seriously court you. I closed my eyes. After racking my brains, I could only say, this is unreasonable. Luzuran did what he said. Tang Sini wasn't eligible to stay in the United States for a long time. Over the years, she had been constantly coming and going with a tourist visa. Luzuran reported her. The customs no longer allowed her to enter the country. It was quite heartless, but this was exactly what Luzuran would do. Luzuran had always refused to agree to marry Tang Sini. His excuse was that he was still in school. He didn't want the same thing that happened in China to repeat itself. Tang Sini was also afraid. She had been raising the child alone and hadn't revealed their relationship to anyone, so the child also stayed in China with her and couldn't come to the United States anymore. Tang Sini had no other choice but to call me over and over again to vent her anger and scold me for being vicious. It's all your fault. You've ruined my life. Why did you have to appear in my life? If I hadn't seen that you could live the life you wanted freely, I wouldn't have been dissatisfied with my current life. I wouldn't have thought about whether I should be more content or whether I should find another way to move up the social ladder, and I wouldn't have broken off relations with my previous boyfriends and godfathers. If I hadn't broken off relations with them, I would still be young now. I could have exchanged for a lot of money from them in the old way, and I could still live a good life, but now, I have a burden to take care of. And Luzuran hasn't given me much money these years. I can't afford to maintain my appearance, and I've become a woman with a sallow complexion. No one wants me. It's all your fault. It's all your fault for making me see that there are other ways for a woman to live a better life. Su Jianian, if you have the guts, don't go back to China for the rest of your life. As long as you go back to China, I'll do everything I can to drag you to hell. Tang Xini had always lived with her elderly grandmother. Her parents were sent to the countryside during a special period because they misread a poem. In the end, they couldn't withstand the harsh environment and died. Poverty had always been with her. She was the one who had truly had enough of the poor life, and she was also the one who took the wrong path. Before she went to university, she had already been going to nightclubs frequently. The first child she asked Lu Zuran to take responsibility for wasn't the first child in her life either. Tang Xini insisted on not having an abortion for the child she had with Lu Zuran because she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to get pregnant again. When I was almost affected by the rumors and it almost influenced my studying abroad, I thought about revealing all these things as a counterattack, but then I thought that if I did that, I would be no different from Tang Xini, so I gave up the idea. Fortunately, later, the truth was clarified. However, now that Tang Xini refused to let it go, I wasn't someone who was blindly kind either. It was already the 21st century. The development of information was too rapid. It was too easy to ruin someone. I said, "Does everyone in China know that you worked as a prostitute? The reason you couldn't stay in China last time was just because you got pregnant before marriage, right?" Tang Xini quickly understood what I meant and gritted her teeth in hatred. "Fine, if you go back to China, I won't cause you any trouble, and you're not allowed to tell anyone about my past either." Naturally, we reached an agreement unexpectedly. Not long after, Tang Xini was sent to prison. She found a job as a nanny in a wealthy merchant's house. When she was bending over to mop the floor wearing a low-cut lace nightgown, the hostess who came back halfway found her. The hostess slapped her a few times on the spot and drove her out. The wealthy merchant went out to stop Tang Xini, who was shouting wildly. After several tugs, he hit his head on the lawn mower and died on the spot. When Tang Xini was arrested, she was still shouting, "Why don't you marry me in this life? You deserve it. Didn't you ask me to wear these clothes? Now that your crazy wife is here, you're denying it. What kind of person are you?" In the end, Tang Xini was crazy and was sent to a mental hospital. Not long after, she was pushed off a high building by another patient there. That was how it ended. When the news of Tang Xini's death came, Lu Zuran was taking advantage of his work to wait outside the laboratory, wanting to have lunch with me. When I walked out, he just put away his phone. I asked, "Aren't you going back to take a look?" Lu Zuran tried to take my briefcase, but I dodged. He rubbed his nose. "I have nothing to do with her. What's there to see if I go back? What about your son? You don't care about him either. He has never called me dad. Aren't you the one who didn't acknowledge him?" Lu Zuran, I really don't understand why ordinary people like you and me, who are everywhere in this vast world, have to care so much about this so-called reputation. For the sake of reputation, you're even willing to abandon your own flesh and blood. Lu Zuran tried to maintain a gentle tone. "But how can I explain that I suddenly have a son? I didn't want to get involved, but growing up alone is too hard." Even though Lu Zuran's son and I were complete strangers, I still wanted to say a few words for him. "Lu Zuran, why do you have to explain these things to others? There aren't that many spectators in life. No one pays attention to what you're doing all the time, and not that many people want to know the reasons behind everything you do. Why do you always think about explaining to others? Isn't it okay to just live your own life well?" Lu Zuran stood there dejectedly after thinking for a long time. "But that's not what the world has taught me. Everything I've experienced tells me that I have to please the world enough to get some things that should have belonged to me in the first place." "What are these things that you said should have belonged to you?" "The identity of your father and son, the descendant of a wealthy person. It was wrong for your father to abandon his wife and child, but he earned his status as a wealthy businessman now all by himself. If he had stayed by your and your mother's side at that time, he would still be a small fish vendor in the vegetable market, reeking of fish all day long. Why should the identity of being a rich second generation be yours by default?" I had already said enough. Obviously, Lu Zuran didn't listen. I stopped caring about him and started preparing for my return to China. No one knew why I suddenly wanted to engage in aircraft manufacturing in my previous life. I only found out just before I closed my eyes that my parents had sacrificed their lives when I was born. They were bombed by foreign shells while on a foreign assignment and didn't even leave any remains. So I wanted to build an aircraft that could become the most advanced weapon in the world. I wanted to make my motherland strong. In this way, no one could ignore the identity of Chinese people and randomly launch shells. The aircraft manufacturing I had been researching was also in the military industry direction. To avoid being obstructed when returning to China, I asked my aunt to adopt Lu Zuran's son. I used the excuse of going back to help with the adoption procedures. Lu Zuran wanted to come back with me. I submitted a report to the leader of the research institute, and he was left behind. There was no way. He couldn't prove that he had a relationship with that little boy, without a legitimate reason. It was also very difficult for Chinese people to get leave from that research institute, when they realized that I didn't plan to go back to the United States and was in contact with relevant research institutes in China. The American Research Institute sent Luzern back to persuade me. I never expected that one day Luzern would be imprisoned on charges of espionage. After several attempts to test the waters and failing to make me change my mind, Luzern received an order to first join a research institute in China and gradually infiltrate it. Unfortunately, I caught him stealing internal data. I promptly reported it to the relevant department after Luzern was taken away. He insisted on seeing me before confessing everything. Su Jianian, the reason for your obsession with your rebirth wasn't because of me, right? I said. Yes, love, whether big or small, deserves to be treated passionately. I love my parents, and I also love my country, but I don't have that kind of feeling for you anymore. I thought that if there was an afterlife, I wouldn't want to be Luzern's wife. Originally, as long as I could return to the United States smoothly, I could get a promotion and an award, gain my father's recognition, and inherit his family property. But I never expected that I would be ruined like this, beyond redemption. As if remembering something, he kept shaking his head. No, you said there's no such thing as originally. There's no such thing as originally. There's no originally. That's more earth-shattering than being reborn once. But even though I got a second chance, I still didn't get what I wanted and was left with nothing but regret. One shouldn't expect what could have been in life, nor should one expect to be reborn. Life should be regarded as a one-time thing. Live well and without regret. I also felt a sense of melancholy. Fortunately, this time I have nothing to regret. The end.